This meeting is being recorded.
Now you know.
All right. So this is Project Herpetoculture, episode 24. I'm your host, Roy Arthur Blodgett, joined as always by the dashing Philip Leitz. And I want to give a quick shout out to Dylan and the Animals at Home Network for hosting us.
The GOAT.
Obligatory. And give a quick shout out to our sponsors. And also we have our Patreon at this point. You can find us at patreon.com/Project Herpetoculture. Any support that you want to offer to the show is much appreciated and will help us grow this thing into bigger and better things as we would like to do.
Heck yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to say here.
Oh, we should say, you know what we should say? We should just say that we are psyched to be recording. I mean, we're over 20 episodes now. I can't believe the fact that we're getting positive feedback from people. It's every single show we've been able to do has been something that's been an incredible learning experience. I know I'm speaking for both of us in this situation. And I feel like it's just worth kind of throwing that out there into the universe. Like, it's awesome that anybody has any interest in what we're doing at all. Like, thank every guest we've had and every person who's ever listened to any one of these conversations. Like, you're awesome.
Yes. Yes. I want to second all of that. I also just want to give another shout out to Charlie, who's my longtime best man, who edits our audio for us and kind of patches that all together. Even with the shoddy mess that we provide for him at times, he makes the best of it. So I really appreciate that. And also, if anyone's out there looking for like social media marketing kind of stuff, Charlie has just launched a new venture called Make Luck Marketing. You can find it on Instagram and Facebook. He's the man. He's a total sweetheart. Support what he's doing if, that could be a mutually beneficial thing. And with all that being said, I'm excited to introduce our guests today, and they are Dan Sheehan and Stacy Schuldaski of Roots, Scoots, and Scales. Welcome to Project Herpetoculture. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Man, I would have messed up that. I would have accident on Roots, Scoots, and Scales. I know I would have messed it up. I know I would have.
It's kind of a hard one for me, but especially because I can kind of smush words sometimes when I'm nervous, which I always am at the beginning of these conversations, but that one worked out. So we're just going to roll with it. Dan, Stacy, just to start off, I'm curious if we could hear a little bit from each of you about kind of your background and origins in herpetoculture. Like, how did it start for you and how did it come to be what it is?
Oh gosh, I guess I'll go first because it's pretty interesting because I know this has popped up on the podcast before, but I started with mostly fish, like a lot of fish of various different kinds. I had like saltwater, just little tropical stuff, a couple monster fish, but nothing like really obnoxious. And in like this short little stint with like reptiles started with in the 3rd grade, my parents got me a green iguana.
Perfect.
And that went as well as I could expect it to go, which wasn't very great. So I don't really count that, but like years later in like maybe 7th grade or so, my friend took me into Petco and showed me the house geckos, and I was like,
yes.
Like, for some reason, it was just those little dudes, and they were sticking all over the wall and stuff, and I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then it was like another thing because like where I was in Pennsylvania, like the Northeast has like really, really bad snowstorms. So I couldn't get any of the like really primary insect eaters at first because my parents hated driving in the snow. So eventually I convinced them to get the very first crested gecko because even though I feel like all my bugs right now, like back, like when you first get one, people are like, oh, just give it the Repashy, it'll be good. So that was like my convincing point for getting that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's always, I love when somebody says, cause like, I have this is not intended to be like critical or anything like that, but like house geckos, I think for people, who've been in herpetoculture for a while, it's like, oh, a house gecko, they're like $5. You know what I mean? Like people think of them as kind of like a little less interesting, but they're bad to the bone. You know what I mean?
Neat.
They're so sick. And I feel like it's real cool for people to be like, oh no, I saw like a Komodo, and it's just like, I blew my mind, it's like, it's like a cool thing to say. So I think it's awesome that a house gecko was what like kicked that off. That's so cool.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, hell yeah. That's great. How about you, Dan?
So nobody in my family, like my direct family, or even my like slightly extended family, outside of my one cousin who's about 8 years younger than me, has anything other than cats and dogs. But going back and forth between Western PA and North Delaware, spent a lot of my times in the woods when I was a kid, when I wasn't in school. So we would go back to see my grandparents. And there's a picture of me, probably first grade, walking out of the woods with this 6-foot black rat snake just curled up around my shoulders, just like my ass off, and my parents just freaking out. And ever since then, it's just been downhill. And finally in 2012, when I came out from underneath the rock that I lived under and started college, a friend of mine was like, hey, we're going to a reptile show. It was like, oh shit, how am I going to find a way to do this every month? Like every other month.
Yeah.
Like after the crested gecko, I found out about the Hamburg show in Pennsylvania, and I was like, I begged my parents to drive me there, and we went there, and it was just swarms of people. It was like sensory overload.
Oh yeah.
It definitely started off that way. And I think first animal, and I think the only animal I've ever gotten permission to bring home was a blue-tongued skink. And
Awesome. Yeah.
after that, it was,
Show up with something.
just show up with something and ask for forgiveness and never permission.
Yeah, for sure. Whoops. I don't know where all these snakes came from.
Wait, there's another tub somewhere under my bed? No, I don't know anything about that. That was here. That's been here.
When they say you can't get any more, that's when you start incubating them, and then you just make more.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go.
Yeah. Anything you can do. It's like you're only allowed to have, like, I remember making these little bargains with my old man when I lived at home, and like I was breeding bearded dragons at the time. I was like 15 years old, you know what I mean? And I was like, I want more. And he was like, nope, no more. And I was like, but I can breed them, right? And he was like, yep, because then you can sell them and make a little money. And so then I was like, perfect. So I just like, when they bred, I just like, all right, now we've got 100 and you can't say shit, old man. It was awesome. It was a good time. Those are great bargains to make with your parents, so you could get away with doing what you wanted. That's a lot of fun.
I feel like I was really lucky in that, like, I mean, my dad early on he was into herps himself, so that was easy. But then like later on, my parents split up and I lived with my mom, and my mom was terrified of snakes in particular. But she was also just like, she wanted to be a supportive mom, and she could tell I was like obsessed, it was like my special interest was reptiles ever since I was like, an embryo. So she just kind of allowed it to happen. But in hindsight, I really, I just got to say thanks, Mom, because she really put up with a lot of huge colubrids in her house for somebody who's scared of snakes.
My mom, actually, for my 18th birthday, I will admit I am way out of it now, but first snake I ever bought was a ball python. It was Petco Special.
It was my first.
And my mom, for my 18th birthday, scared is holding it like this. And like you could see like the fear on her face, and she took a photo of it and had it framed for me. Yes. That was a gift for my 18th birthday, and I was like,
see, I think mine's like partially genetic, because in like the 80s, my brother's kindergarten class took a field trip to their house because there were so many reptiles in it.
Wow. Love it.
Awesome.
So we got out of that for like a big chunk of when I was like really small, but that's why I was allowed to have a significant quantity growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's great. I have one quick story because I just remembered this.
Yeah.
When I was in like, I don't know, must have been like 8 or 9 years old, something. I did one of those things where, I got out of school at like 2:45, but my parents worked until 5 or 6. And so I did like an after school thing. Right. And it was like just something set up by the school where school would let out, you'd go to the cafeteria, and then you'd, fuck around for 2 or 3 hours until your parents came and got you. And there were adults supervising, like an after school program. Right.
Yeah.
And, one of them at one point, this is in Arvada, Colorado, right? Little tiny elementary school. And I remember there was like this, we let out to go outside and there was like a pathway going down to the basketball court. And it's like a little paved thing. And it was like a paved stairway that was going between 2 big rows of pines and stuff, because there was a little bit of open space. And I was walking along the staircase, and on one side of the stairs, there was a big old garter snake, like a big one, big Western, or not Western. I don't know why I said that, but big garter snake. And I remember I was like, sick, and just no thought at all. Just went to go grab it, pick it up and take a look, sent it on me, bit me like 20 times. And I'm just like, awesome. This is great. Like, I didn't care, just happy about it. But it was a pretty substantially sized garter snake. So it kind of left little pinpricks and it was bleeding. Right? So anyway, I go back inside, and one of the adults who was supervising, like, hey, what happened to your arm? I'm like, oh, I just found this garter snake out there and got bit. And she freaks out and calls an ambulance to come to the thing, because she didn't know. I was like 8 or 9 years old. I was like a little kid. I had no idea. And the next thing I know, there's like people coming in. They're like, do you know what kind of snake bit you? I'm like, yeah. I was like, garter snake, Bamnophis natrix, not a big deal at all. Why are you here? And like the paramedic was like, oh, okay, just another, it was like a false alarm. It was an accident. She just thought, she didn't know, right? She was like, had just gone through like, here's how to make it so kids don't die in your care training, and was like, you got bit by a snake. Shit, what if it was a rattlesnake? And again, I was just a kid. How was she supposed to know that I knew what I was looking at?
Yeah, she have to like trust you.
She's not gonna be like, hey, this 8-year-old knows what he's talking about, And then what was funny is, like, I think I have like a memory of my mom coming to pick me up and finding out about all of this, and she was like, no, it's fine. Like, he fucks with all the animals outside the house. He was hunting salamanders in Connecticut when he was 3 and 4 years old. Like, it's fine, like. Anyway, that was my story.
I got caught with a bunch of salamanders in my pockets in kindergarten.
No way.
Yeah. She's like, I was collecting them on the playground, and someone tattled on me, and the teacher comes up when we're like in the middle of class, and she's like, turn out your pockets. And they were sweating. I just had all this dirt and all these redback salamanders.
Busted.
Classic, dude. That's fantastic. Oh my God. That's great. That's heartwarming.
This reminds me of like 7th grade, we had to do like this like big it was like our first like big research project, multiple different components. You had to like write several different essays and stuff like that. And of course, like, I'm like, okay, how can I make this project about snakes? And so I basically, I think like you had to like start with like a question. So I think my question was like, what do we know about rattlesnakes in the United States, or something like that? And in one of them, like, one of the options is we could write like a story, like a first-hand encounter kind of experience, or like essay, short story kind of thing. And so I wrote the story of like the first time I caught a rattlesnake. And so I was 13, and I remember just like my my teacher being like simultaneously like really stoked, because it was like really well written. I was like a good writer for a little kid. But also like mortified that I had like gone out and caught a rattlesnake to write this story. But
dude,
things that we do,
dude. Okay. I know we purport ourselves to be a very serious minded podcast, but this is some damn worthwhile data right here. I'm telling you. So I have a very similar story. When I was like not like a little kid, I was a freshman in high school. So like at prime embarrassment age, right?
Oh yeah.
And I had a writing assignment in one of my English classes, and I did a writing assignment about bearded dragons and about like how to care for them, and like how to, it was like this whole thing where I basically got up and I spouted out like a care guide and like if you breed bearded dragons, here's what happens when you cross like a red to a snow and all this stuff. It was, dude, it was horribly embarrassing, like in retrospect, because dude, like the whole class was just like, just like
I definitely did the same thing about crested geckos. So
hell yes.
You're not alone, Phil. We're with you.
I feel seen and heard for the first time in my life.
Do you ever do like what do you want to be when you grow up? And like you go in and be like, I wanted to be a herpetologist.
Oh yeah.
First question they ever asked, like before like even 3 sentences in, is that the study of venereal diseases?
Oh my god.
Exactly. Oh yes. We've all been there, haven't we?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I still cringe every single time people are like, what are you into? And I'm like, herpetoculture. And they're like, what the heck? Does it have something to do with herpes?
But totally.
It's like it's always gonna happen, you just got to be braced for it.
It almost sounds better to say that than, because it's like you have two choices, right? When people say like, oh, what do you mean? I'll say, oh, I'll be teaching jujitsu, and I'll, somebody be like, oh, what do you, what's your day gig or whatever, and I'm like, this really, I try to like dodge the topic a little bit, like not because I'm ashamed to share it, because I just don't know how to describe it to people. And then they're like, oh, you don't do anything else outside of jujitsu? And I'm like, yeah, no, and it's, then you have a choice, right? You either go with the herpetoculturist angle, which is like, herpy what? Haha. Or you go with, I breed reptiles. And people are like, you do what now? Like, it's like, you can't, it just sounds so much less sophisticated than herpetoculturist, the lives we've chosen to lead. Am I right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here we are. Project Herpetoculture. It's right there in the title.
Yes. There's
you
can do. Before
we slide even further off the rails, not that we need to stay on the rails. I think this is great, but I know that the two of you have like distinct differences in like what you're focused on personally in herpetoculture, but there's also like overlap and you kind of join forces. So I'm curious if you could each describe like what are your personal kind of passions when it comes to like certain species or taxa within herpetoculture. Like what are you focused on? What are you working with?
For me, it's pretty much all colubrids now. Like for my main focus, a large quantity of that is the Boiga genus as an entirety. I think at this point in time, I have 13 different species in my collection,
wow.
Which I think the most in the United States, but at the same time, not really something I'm touting until I get more successful with them. I can keep them alive, and right now that's good, and I can breed a couple of them, so I'm happy with that. And then I have some other oddball stuff. I have false water cobras. We have some yellowtail and blacktail crebos. Madagascan giant hognose. I did go back to corn snakes because not everybody can have rear fang snakes, and they are kind of cool. They're the ball python of the colubrid world, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
They come in every shape, size, and color now. So
yeah, I mean, they're so cool. Like, if you do someone like a corn snake morph, and it's like one of those like neon orange ones. There's even someone random off the street thinks that's really cool, as long as they're not like totally prejudiced in the first place. So.
Right.
Oh yeah, I mean, even like an OKT, it's just like, I mean, that's just a beautiful, striking animal.
That's most of the corns we have are OKTs and reverse OKTs.
Nice. Those are my favorites still. Yeah.
And I would say it started mostly with the geckos. Like I've been keeping the crested geckos since 2007 in like a significant quantity. Haven't really stopped. There was like a short gap where I thought I wanted like just gargoyles and nothing else. That was a mistake. I went back to crested geckos. Now we have both. So it's all good with that. But it started with those. I ended up really liking skinks, so they're there too. And like there's a whole bunch. Like anything that's like weird or funky and like can align in the parameters of the room, I just need to like at least try it. Like we got the Shinisaurus, those are one of my like top favorites. That's like kind of a joint effort project though too. But It's like probably if I could just like pick one species to keep, it would be that one. So they're probably like my top favorite. Even though we don't have like tons and tons, I would like to get like a decent group going eventually. It's just like tough to find them at all.
Mhm.
I got some of the small woods and knolls upstairs.
Oh
Kind of
yeah.
had like, I got eggs from them this year, but there was a little bit, I have to like tweak the husbandry a little bit, and they weren't like as hot as they should be, I think. So next year,
Mhm.
there's a couple little changes. I talked to some people, and hopefully I will get like eggs and babies.
Shout out to
we'll
Ron
see.
St. Pierre for helping us out.
Yeah, I had a really good
Yes.
discussion with him at Daytona and got some pointers and
Nice.
another. So
No one better for that.
small woods. And so as for the skinks, we have northern blue tongues, eastern blue tongues, Irian Jayas. Might be breeding all of those this year. And then the Gidgee skinks.
Nice.
You've seen the Mullers. Those are the weird little guys that came in recently, and we got a little group going because it was really funny because I was talking to one of our friends and we're like, we never ever see these come in at all. And then like 2 weeks later, there's a whole bunch that came through.
Get a phone call. I was
So
like, hey,
everyone was telling me. So we managed to get, so there's 6 that are doing really good right now. So I hope they continue. It's been like well over a month for the first group of those. So
That's
Oh, wow.
awesome.
That's great.
and then there's a couple
That's-
other stuff floating around. Like there's the night lizards, pink
Ooh.
tongues, couple the bavia. I don't know if anyone like talks about those, but that's another cool little New Caledonian
Oh,
species
yeah,
that
yeah.
I had 2 girls and our friend loaned us a male, and I got 4 eggs incubating. But I hope next season, now that he's been here a while and he like gets with the cycle of the room, it will just all be like smooth next
and
year.
past quarantine.
Yep. So we'll see.
Good.
Always.
Yeah.
Always
Are you still
quarantine.
working with the Gastrophilus too?
Yeah.
Nice.
So we just picked up our last show we went to in Gettysburg. We picked up an unrelated female.
Nice.
So we're looking at how many we have upstairs?
So I got 3 babies that I'm holding back, and they're all girls. I don't know if I'm gonna keep them all, and then the 2 adult pairs.
Nice.
And like a lot of people really like those. I don't know, like it's the little the like
I
the
think
green shade, how vibrant they are, but they're like little tree monitors. They're so active
Oh,
and
they're
like
so cool.
intelligent.
And that threat display that they do is the most
Oh my
hilarious thing ever.
Mine haven't done that too much, but I really startled the one time when I was checking under the cork and she did it for the first time, and I was like, "Whoa, buddy!"
Amazing. Do you know? Have
Yeah.
you seen that, Phil? The Gastrophilus thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's really, really, really cool. Yeah. I like I feel like the future, I don't know, I keep saying this, but what do I know? But I feel like so much of the future of herpetoculture is like small stuff. You know what I mean? It's
And
like,
they're not that tiny.
yeah,
Like
I know they're not.
like, walking, so
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't mean like ultra tiny. I don't mean like, viper gecko tiny, but I just mean like not ornate Uromastyx big, even an ornate's kind of like a little bit large and kind of needs like a fairly substantial cage, but and I'm not saying, anyway, I'm way off topic here. Yeah, sorry, continue.
But no, the gastros are cool, and like they have the little monitors. Like some of them that I've like raised from little tiny babies, they'll come up on your hand and they'll like be just like running around, just like the Ackies are sometimes. It's pretty cute.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, hell
Yeah, they seem really cool, really like interactive and inquisitive little critters.
They can
What
be
about
like a little shy and like apprehensive about you before they know like what your whole deal is, but
it's
Mhm.
like how you can like train like the day geckos, like the grandest.
Yeah,
They're like, I put them in the same boat, just not as flighty, more standoff. Like, hey, I'll let you know if I want to come out. Versus,
yeah,
I don't want to be here.
yeah, totally. Yeah.
when the Gastrophilus, like if a little baby escapes, you could just kind of corral it and it'll climb up on your hand and stuff. It's not like running in 3 dimensions all over the place.
Mhm. Yeah, that's always a little bit stressful when they can literally stick to any surface. What about the shinnies? Can you tell me a little bit more about them? That's just such an amazing, interesting species, and yeah, I'm curious like how it's been keeping them. How do you have them set up?
I
What's
don't
it like
know,
working with
like
those?
when was the first time you saw one? 'Cause-
The first time, so First time I saw one was probably so we have another local show to us. It usually alternates from the main show in like Eastern PA. It's called Oaks. Somebody had one. Justin Moosterman, Legacy Herps.
Yeah.
Our first encounter with him, he had a pair on his table that he was selling, and we were talking about it. And this is probably when I realized what they were.
Oh my gosh, is that him? I don't even remember.
Lizards were cool to me, but they didn't grab my attention all the time. So I probably could have seen one before, but the first time I remember seeing one,
I was probably freaking out about it.
Yeah, she was freaking out about it, and I think almost a year later, we ended up picking up a male. We both got phone calls that day, and
because it was at the expo.
It's at the expo, and a friend called me. And I'm like, hold on to it. I'm coming back from New York from work, and I'm flooring it there.
Nice.
And
he's like, just hold it in your hands. Don't put it down.
Don't let anyone else buy it.
Right.
Exactly. And I got text too, and I was literally at work at that time. So that was our first boy. And then I think like we're like thinking about it, like it's gonna be so long before we can manage to like find a girl for this guy, because like you don't see them pop up that often. And then like 3 months later.
Yeah, 3 months later, Mike Lorette out of Florida, he posts one up, and I'm like, hey, can we work something out?
Yeah.
So she came, and it was like right in the fall on like the cusp of brumation. So she arrived, she ate like once in my care and didn't eat till next year.
So
because she went to bed.
Yeah, like end of September, all the way through till I think almost January, February. Didn't eat, was just kind of living there like a statue, kind of moving around maybe
She
once
scooched
every once in a while.
Hibernation spot.
She found her spot that she was happy with and just went.
It was really stressful when you like just get something and it's like time to go to bed for several months.
Yeah, that's like.
Well, now they're like so we're using like the Tetra paludariums because the water section is like way deeper than the exoterras. I don't know about like the new design exoterras. They look like they raised it a little bit, but it's like half and half, and it's got the sliding glass doors, which are really nice. And I got the universal rocks going up for the land areas, because if you just use like a lot of dirt, it gets super messy. So the majority is that, and then there's like little dirt sections in the corners, pothos, because they can trample it and not have an issue with it. I don't really give them a basking spot because the room stays pretty warm, and if they get up under the fluorescent tubes, they can actually get into the 90s if they really want to.
Yeah, nice.
They do have the UVB over them. I don't know. There's like, of course, the big debate if they like need it or not, but I do have them with the tropical, the low percentile.
Nice. Yeah.
Right. Nice.
What about for diet? Are they? I know that they really like earthworms. Is that right?
Yep, that's their favorite food. So when they're like going down for brumation or just waking up, it's like a lot of earthworms, because I want them to be like nice and beefy, and then they're like appetite could be a little dropped till they heat up all the way again. So a lot of worms then, but they've eaten dubias, crickets. It's a pain in the butt though, because the water, they'll be popping all in there. So, and I've given them like pieces of shrimp and like little smelts they'll eat as well. And we tried pinkies with the female, and she eats them too.
Yeah,
I think it helps when she's pregnant. So
yeah,
that's the only time we give her that, and that's definitely a moderation thing.
That's not super. That's like a very small amount, but it's mostly bugs and earthworms. They're not at all. They also, I did recently try, because someone told me they like this, the Rupashi grub pie.
Oh, cool.
Like the one for like bearded dragons and blue tongue skinks and stuff.
Yeah,
and if you get that, they cut it in little cubes and stuff and tongue feed it to them. They do actually like that a lot. So that's a little bit that I started doing.
Oh, that's great.
That's cool. Yeah.
Really, really cool.
That's just that's like one of those, I don't know. There's just certain like species, within herpetoculture that are kind of iconic, or charismatic species. And that's definitely one I think about a lot, Shineosaurus. And my buddy, Danny Craig in the UK has had a lot of success breeding them. And he and I are always talking about him, always bugging him about those.
I saw his post. He has so many.
So. Yeah. He's a great person to reach out to about them for sure. But yeah, I know that you also, I mean, obviously, so it's you clearly have a strong emphasis on New Caledonian stuff. You know, that's like you said, you've been keeping Cressy since 2007, which is that's not a small thing. That's a long time. You know, that's some tenure. You know, I mean, you know, that's the year that I hatched Sulfurious the first time, you know, that clutch with my big male was 2007. And then I was away for 10 years, you know, or 11 years. So I'm only back in herpetoculture for 4 years. So I still feel like a newbie coming back to it. But
yeah, I mean, I've never had like hundreds and hundreds of crested geckos, but I've always had like a decent amount. So.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you've got some experience with it. And I know that you were saying, you know, kind of offline, you and I were messaging about them on Facebook a bit, and you were saying that you've got some kind of different ideas or some kind of controversial opinions about how to properly keep New Caledonians. So I'm wondering if you're willing, if we can open that can of worms a little bit. I'm curious to hear about it.
Yeah,
Dan's trying to hold it together here
all the time over this, but like the bugs aspect, they need the bugs. There have been like studies, and like a huge part of their diet in the wild is still bugs. And people on these groups just like sign on and read information and start repeating it and repeating it and repeating it. And they're just like, oh, they don't actually need bugs. You can just give them like the fruit paste. And I'm like, but even if you think about it, like all the fruit in the wild is seasonal and there's bugs all over the place. Like they're going to find them, and like they grow so much better when you offer them. So I try for at least 2 times a week, sometimes more. It depends basically. And like it's the bugs and the warmth as well. Like a lot of people don't heat them or anything if it's like room temperature, but room temperature to someone could be like 68 degrees. That's like way too cold for the majority of the time. Like I'm cooling them right now because there's like a seasonal cycle. So I don't have them at like 75 or 78 or anything. They're like low 70s, like high 60s, but it's still not like constantly 60s for the whole time they're growing and stuff. And I think that's why people have the problems where they have like little baby crested gecko and it never grows for them. It's like 2 years old and it's still like 6 grams.
Yeah it seems like that's a really common thing.
It's the bugs and the heat.
The other thing, like she'll look at them, and 90% of the time we'll ask people at the shows, because that's where I get most of I try to learn more at shows, and then I'm like, all right, let me test this in my head and see if I actually want to try something. But you'll talk to somebody and be like, yeah, I don't feed them bugs, and their gecko is like a beanpole. It's just straight.
Even when it's their eyes, like it seems like their eyes grow faster than the rest of their body if they're not eating bugs. And I can look at it, and they're bug-eyed anyway. They look kind of funny, but like they'll be like unproportionately large, and you can sort of tell there's like this distinct weird look to it, and that's like a thing. So if it's having like visual, like I can see some issues developing. I think that like bugs and fruit and some heat are like the ticket for like the actual healthy crested gecko.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
And this also applies to gargoyles as well. I found the same thing. They all eat bugs. They all like bugs. But this was the first year we were actually like breeding the gargoyles, because we bought them when they were little itty bitty babies. So it took a couple years and they got big. So
that's great.
It reminds me of when we talked. I think it was when we were talking to Dr. Chapman. I think an episode we had, and I think that she was talking about like with like lychees, you know, like how they're notorious for just like these like really runny, you know, runny feces on the glass. And like part of that is that like they actually need a little bit more like solid food. Essentially, they will eat, obviously they'll eat other geckos, small geckos.
You don't have any of those yet, but I do hear like even in today in like one of the group chats I'm in for like various crested gecko related stuff, they were complaining about the lychee poop and having to clean it. So
there's a similar thing with knobtail geckos, you know, like Nephrosamii, which I guess I had no idea for a long time. I didn't know that they were fairly predatory, you know what I mean? And you give them some pretty substantial prey items. And so there was a few times where I've fed them, you know, instead of just feeding insects, I've given them like baby banded geckos, and they go nuts for those things. It's pretty sweet.
Oh yeah.
It's a little rough, but you know, gotta do what you gotta
totally.
do.
cycle of life. Like I know one of Stacy's skinks upstairs is probably not natural prey, but it has the person that we got it from was keeping it in basically they put a divider in an enclosure, and they had a small spiny iguana and ended up getting in with the skink, and the skink ate it.
Oh my God.
So he has a body count.
Yeah.
God, he's got a body count.
You got to name him Iced Tea.
That's tight. Oh,
Pretty
brutal.
Love it. That's good.
Hilarious. Oh man, that's
And that's
fantastic.
the only one that's like actually really bit me because she loves food so much. I was putting a bowl of food down in there and she got my thumb before I could put it away. Oh my God, that's gonna hurt.
There's so much. I think sometimes I personally tend to underplay the way context can affect the behavior of the animals that I have. So like one of the ways I first started learning about this or first started being aware of it in like more specific ways was when I was keeping collared lizards and chuckwallas. And there would be a friend of mine named Nick Dokai. He would actually keep them occasionally he would keep them together, where you keep some chucks in the same cage as some collared lizards, because in the wild a lot of them share habitat, and yeah, they'll eat each other, but if you have adult chucks and adult collards, it's not really anything in general to worry about. And he would talk about how he would have collared lizards or chuckwallas steal food from one another, right? And I remember him saying, "Oh, this is how I got, this is how a lot of my collards started eating greens, because it's been known that collared lizards will occasionally eat vegetable matter, and especially flowers and stuff, And so I was like, oh, that's pretty weird. So I remember keeping a couple of my Baja collared lizards in with my chuckwallas for a very short period of time, and they started eating flowers. And sometimes I wonder if that's like a context thing. Sometimes I wonder if that's like a microbiome thing, like what there's probably a whole mess of factors that go into changing something like that. And yeah, I didn't have a point with that. It was just something I was kind of
I feel like there's also some social cues input into that. I've seen people like problem feed or garter snakes. Yeah. And obviously most people keep garters communally. Sorry. And you'll see one or two start coming out, and it's kind of like a, hey, why do they keep going here? And they keep following and following.
Right.
Sooner or later start.
Oh yeah. No, you're totally right.
They like learn from the others. Yeah. It's so true. It's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like there's a lot of food items that we like. A lot of times people don't even like think to offer that could be good, like the small woods and alls. I started giving them like fruit and stuff, and they actually they really like it. They really like raspberries and mangoes and anything that has like some sort of color for it. And that's not, you don't like hear that on like, if you just read about them real quick, it's just like, oh, it's an all, it eats bugs and other lizards that are smaller.
Yeah,
absolutely. There was a guy who used to come into one of the reptile shops where I used to work, and he would come in once a week and buy Cuban tree frogs to feed his Cuban nightingale.
Wow.
He would that's all he would fed. That's all he fed him, like once a week.
Whoa, what a trip.
Yeah. There's been a few, man, I worked at this crazy reptile shop called Reptilian Haven here in Colorado for a long time. There were some trippy folk that used to come in. Real trippy
dogs.
Yeah. feeding Cuban tree frogs to Cuban nightingales. And like there was a guy who used to come in who had a croc monitor that he kept in a refurbished closet that he made for this, and he would come in once every like 2 weeks or something like this and buy a dozen mice, and he would feed, that's all he would feed it, once every 2 weeks. And this
when I worked at PetSmart, there was some dude that swore that all his Savannah monitor needed was hot dogs.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
Oh God.
Yeah.
God.
That's like, I feel like that's the kind of stuff you'd see back in like the 90s a lot. There was like a lot of stuff like that, when I remember as a kid,
and the way he said
feeding their monitors cat food. And
Yeah.
Hot dogs.
Imagine being a prisoner and the only thing you're getting fed is hot dogs. Like,
Oh
God,
no.
I'm so bad. I can't.
that's so dark. That is so
That is
dark.
so dark.
Oh
A
man.
good way to think about it though.
I mean, for real, it's what it is.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, I'm taking us on a deep, dark turn there. Sorry.
Well, for kind of like, I mean, some of the stuff that you're describing working with is stuff that's kind of like rare and or kind of yet to be established within herpetoculture more broadly. So I'm curious like how you go about like orienting to that. Like how do you feel about like working with wild caught herps and like just kind of that whole rabbit hole? Curious.
So my progression, like I was telling you when I was trying to figure out how I was going to get to shows all the time, was for first 3-4 years before I knew Stacy, I worked for 2 different wholesaler and importers. So I got a lot of experience just seeing new things. That's when I kind of fell in love with Boyega. I was helping him unpack, and he's just like, "Here, unpack this." Tosses me a bag, and he's like, he doesn't really bring in anything that's dangerous. So like, I'm not worried about a cobra or something in there. And I just reach and pull out, and I had probably 6 Boyega dendrophila. 3 of them were latched on my arm. And I'm just like,
God.
oh, cool. And, no adverse reaction back then. And,
That's
just putting them away and kind of just learning the do's and the don'ts more or less of, how to quarantine, start putting things in places, getting them acclimated, get them feeding, water. And seeing that stuff to me was always interesting. Like, I think a large majority of my Boyega that didn't come from Europe or wild caught animals. One of my prized possessions is a wild caught melanota. And then like the Mueller skinks, it's stuff that, you don't see very often, that both me and Stacy were like,
the newest shenanigan.
It's something that
we were going to ask about those.
Yeah.
I saw those and panicked. I saw those posted up and I panicked.
Pretty cool.
It's one of those things like you can, if you have the right mindset going into it and like, like, hey, I'm going to do the best I can, look at natural history, look at, talk to other people. If you've seen any, go back and look at the forums, even though they're not as active anymore, for old stuff to see just like how somebody get a baseline for it and have that like, all right, so this is what everybody's kind of leaning towards. And you see like the new stuff and the old stuff where kind of things overlap. And you're like, all right, this is probably the good stuff. So let me start from there and work forward. And, first thing, we have a little bit of difference, and she wants to shotgun things. Most of the things that I've worked with, and my mentor with Venomous, he's like, some of the things, if you shotgun them, you're guaranteed killing them.
Well, I waited with the molars.
Yes.
So, but if I see something, because I have a microscope, and if I see something on a sample and it's worms, it's just totally gross. I'm like, I'm going to touch them. They're going to go all over the house. It's terrible. My brain gets pretty wild about that. So, needless to say, everything is quarantined. So,
yeah,
she turns
such an important part.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So that's really intriguing, because I definitely know some folks who kind of play it a little more fast and loose with their quarantine procedures, and then some that prioritize it very, very strongly. And I still sort of like unsettled on which I lean towards more myself, because obviously I quarantine everything, right? I make sure that I'm very careful, especially now, that nothing comes through the shop that I'm not, and I do extended quarantines too. It's not like some 30-day nonsense. My stuff's quarantined for 60 days for sure, minimum, but that's just because I've had too many examples of where I had something new, quarantined it for 30 days, everything seemed fine, and then something presented itself as soon as it came out of quarantine, but at the same time, I also don't really, I'm very, very hesitant to medicate myself. Like unless something's actively wrong with the animal, I have a tendency not to err on the side of not medicating most of the time. And I know a lot of people don't agree with that, and I understand that, and I don't blame them. But it's just something like, if a wild caught ornate comes in and it's doing very well, I'm really hesitant to just like nuke its microbiome. You know what I mean?
Well, like a lot of the herbivores, they're more sensitive with that. I don't know if it's because of the diet related, but I've heard a lot of times like with the monkey-tailed skinks, you can't really treat them because like their flora will just be so like messed up from that, though, that they just won't survive.
Interesting. I had not heard that.
There's definitely like certain things, and like a lot of people are like, oh, they're in quarantine, so paper towels, sterile environment, and keep it as clean as possible. As soon as it poops, clean it.
Right.
It's not always the case. And while like the Muller skinks, even after they complete quarantine, they're one of those things we're probably going to work with. Either that's the only thing we're going to work with today, or that's the last thing we're going to work with.
Yeah, sure.
And like, I didn't pay, like, there's no way you could paper towel that. It like they went straight into like dirt and moss and leaves. Because I think that's why a lot of people may have had trouble with them in the past, because I heard some bad things when they've come in before, and I think it's like trying to be too sterile with those would be a problem. So we waited legitimately 4 weeks before we even started with treating them, and it was very light.
Right. Yeah.
I think.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Roy.
No, you Dan, go ahead.
I was gonna say, with like with that is even like in the situation with the Mullers is you have that, and kind of probably where you were going with this, Phil. Not Phil. It's Phil, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. I just called you Roy. Oh man, that was really, really funny. No, it's because I just felt, I thought that was Roy because I was looking at a picture of the Muellers. You know what I mean? I was just checking them out because I'm really into them. I'm just like, I've been watching. I saw your guys' posts when you got them, and I was like, damn, I'd never seen them before. I was like, what the hell is that thing? Like, I've
seen them. Yeah. And it's like, I'm never gonna like have that because it just doesn't come in. So when they did, I was like, oh no, even if this doesn't turn out in the long term, like to do well, at least I have to put in like the best effort that I possibly can. Because if they do get established and they do start having babies, they're really, really neat. Like they're starting to come out a little bit. They're not like completely under the dirt all the time. I see them, so they're not completely foreign.
Sick.
I have a side note for that I'll tell a little bit later. But like you were saying, you don't want to kill that entire gut flora.
Yeah.
In the wild, you're looking at, there's always a carrying capacity for some kind of parasite. Like even here, humans, we have something in us all the time. Like it's nothing's ever perfectly clean.
Right.
And we went on the lower end of that, and just to kind of pull it down a little bit, just because of the high stress of being imported, moving around 2 or 3 times between the importer to us, or from another importer to a wholesaler to us for the second batch that we got.
Yeah.
Just give them enough to help them not get overtaken sometimes. And if you keep that clean and you're not going across and like, hey, I'm going to go handle this 100% captive bred animal that's bred in thousands like Cresties or something like that.
Hey, sometimes they're still dirty.
Yeah.
Because people don't follow proper quarantine, then you're not really worried about getting them 100% clean, because sometimes they need something in their gut to help something. There's nematodes in certain animals that they need.
There's the Italian wall lizards, actually certain populations of them have more like a herbivorous diet, and there are nematodes that actually help them with that. Like they have like a relationship with the actual parasite helping them digest vegetation.
So,
that's so
stuff
cool.
like that where you're not familiar, it might have an adverse reaction. So like that's why shotgunning treatment to me is not a smart idea. Let them, if you see them struggling, then maybe, but like if they're not struggling, like you're saying, Phil, like, back off a little bit, let them do what they do, and they're maintaining what they have in them, so it's not a problem.
Right. And especially with the Euros, that it's been long, well, not long, I guess, but it's sort of like understood now that Euros just happen to have, they always have a little bit of pinworm in them. It's just something you typically see. And so, I've had some where it's like, of course, some are going to have more than others. And depending on when you do the fecal and, all those other factors, you might find more, you might find less. And I just I get a little skeptical. I'm like, do we really, I'm not convinced that anybody really has like a super clear idea of exactly what the gut flora of a Euromastix is supposed to look like, because we don't even know what is going on with our own. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, we have no idea what's going on with the human microbiome either. So it's like, you're gonna be hard pressed to tell me it's like, well, you know what I mean? But I understand that that's not the rationale behind medicating either, and I medicate all the time if I have to, something goes weird, and the animal's losing weight and it seems to have like a huge amount of pinworm or something, then yeah, of course we're gonna do a treatment. Like, I'm not gonna let the animal suffer, you know what I mean? But I bet you $1 million, like I would never, I am 100% sure if you tested all of my Euros, they would have some amount of something, I'm sure. Like, I have no doubt in my mind, like not a single doubt in my mind. But all of them, they handle it, and I don't know, maybe that sounds really bad, but I don't think so. It's like they none of them, they all have great appetites, great health. They get checked frequently. Like, all my animals are in tippy top form.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's anything going on that shouldn't be going on at the shop, right? So I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought at the moment. I've been
it's probably just like their baseline of normal. They probably are healthy and they're built to just that is healthy for them.
Yeah.
That's how they're supposed to. But like a lot of stuff, I don't know if it's like because this is like a newbie species, but I've gotten a lot of crested geckos that have had like severe overgrowth of worms when I receive them from like even like decent people. Like, they just arrive and then you see the sample and it's just like loaded. So I have to end up treating a lot of those new Caledonian species when I do get them, and they do go in quarantine, and it is definitely over 30 days, because you have like the other stuff with geckos, like they can get crypto too, which is really, really bad. So and that could take a while to show up, because I have a friend who it didn't like show up within the first 30 days, and they had their new stuff tested and some of it had it. So if they would have just done 30 days, they could have killed like all their geckos if they put those and thought they were safe.
Yeah. And of course, and I just want to make sure that it's clear that I'm not like I am not in any way trying to be critical of what you're doing at all. Like, just so that's clear. I just wanted to make sure that didn't come.
There's several levels. Like with the crested geckos, that's how I do it. With the mullers, we did that differently because they're so weird and we don't know that much about them.
Like, I have a couple Boega in my collection that I just don't want to treat because they're super slender. Like, they have a little bit of density to them, but like the multimaculata that I have and the one Bankuluensis that I have that is the beta, that's an actual species or just a variant of Trapezii, are untreated from when they got here. They eat, I let them be, and it's just like, I know you probably, the Malto I'm 100% sure has parasites, but I'm just like, all right, you're eating, you're shedding, I'm going to let you be, because last time I did try to treat them, and I don't know if the kidneys it just didn't help with the kidneys, because being transported and being kind of like a high humidity species, like they just didn't go well. Or so I'm like, all right, let me pull back, keep it in quarantine, keep it away from the rest of the collection, and just let it kind of hold out here. Maybe do a little bit of like a microdose treatment to see if I can get something out of it and see if it starts going that way. But like you were saying, maybe it has a norm of having parasites. So it's
just like those like high humidity, like in those species that get imported all the time, like their kidneys could get wrecked in the span that it takes them to get from the importer to like the wholesale and then to your house. So if anybody in the past wasn't like hydrating them good enough, they could already be like doomed by the time you get them, and then you could just put them over the edge if you treat them. So
yeah, sure, absolutely.
That's pretty much been my approach with the Polycris too, for pretty much the same reason. It's like, I think that they almost invariably just come in so dehydrated. They've already got issues with their kidneys likely happening, and I have always just elected to go really light on treatment. for them, as long as they're like eating well, as long as they're gaining weight. I try not to get too worried about it. I mean, down the line, like if once they've been, in quarantine for a few months, and as long as they've got good weight and they seem solid, then sometimes I'll run fecals and treat like I said, light. But yeah, I think that with so many species that are just a little bit more sensitive, and they're already coming in dehydrated, they don't, especially species like Dan, like what you said about the Boiga, that just don't have a lot of heft, they don't have a lot of like fat stores, I think it can be really difficult. I also see it with stuff like, like Chironius and like, some of the like super lean, fast colubras from South America that come in. Often they're like totally loaded with parasites because they're a neurin specialist, they're eating all these frogs, but they have just no body fat. And so the margins for error are super, super narrow.
Well, and
but
sorry. So I was just gonna say that, and I definitely treat each different animal that I have a little bit differently. You know what I mean? In terms of, like obviously, like I think that's what you guys are saying too. There's definitely been times where, like I have gotten it. I've probably brought for, the number of euros I've had in my care that have been transitioning from wild to captive. It's a pretty high number, like it's not an absurd number, but it's a lot more than people might think, because some of them you lose, and a lot of so much of it seems like timing, like how quickly did you get them? How long were they sitting at that importer? Like you guys were just talking about as well, like, some animals I've gotten in on that look just awful, just like razor hip bones. They're like a little bit sunken in, they're a little down, they're a little beat up. And in a little, just a few days of proper conditions with just a little bit of water and a little bit of better food, they perk up and they honestly, some of them can just take right off and just hit the ground running. It's like they get so depleted and so jacked by the time they get to your place that just giving them what they needed in the first place is like, boom, let's go, and they'll just blast off. And then some might arrive in decent form where they don't look, they have good body weight, they seem active and grumpy. Maybe the first few days they eat and everything seems fine. And after a few days, then it kind of sets in. Then the stool gets weird. Then the weight starts to be lost. And it's like, you had something that was just hanging out in there. You know what I mean? And then as soon as you got where you needed to, bam, it hit. You were just immunosuppressed enough to like let it just, and it could have just been coincidence or timing. Another random thing. So I really recently got in a group of Conyxus specki, the hingeback tortoises, and it's like this total, it's like this new project for me. It's something I'm really trying to like learn as much as I can. And I've been getting a lot of help from Jeremy over at the Conyxus working group. Like great guy, great help. It's been fun. And they were all together for the first several weeks here, because I was just trying to get them in place and get them happy, get them doing their thing, just making sure everybody's eating, make sure they're clean and get some photos, get some weights, just the whole scene of when you're bringing somebody new in. And I split them over the last week or so. I split them up into individual solo cages because that's the way Jeremy's advised me to do this. And he's having great success. So I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I split them into solo cages. And just from 2 days solo, all their shit solidified. Like it was runny, like it was blasted diarrhea before that. Like also, like Jackson Pollock diarrhea. Like it was gnarly diarrhea. And in 2 days of being by themselves, it's pellets now. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying they're not going to get some medication. They may need it, right? It's, but the point is just like, that alone is pretty damn crazy. It's wild what just better conditions will let an animal kind of take care of themselves in some ways, in some situations,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I feel like maybe I brought us off topic. Did I feel like
no.
You didn't.
All right.
Pretty on top.
If I seem a little out of it, I'm just a little bit sleepy. Like I've been like ripping hard in my daily life. And by the time Friday hits, I'm still just like a little bit tired from training and from all this other stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I got to pull back a little bit. So sorry if I seem a little bit delirious and maybe a little less coherent than normal.
No, not at all.
Okay, cool.
At least not that I noticed. You're always like that, man. You're just always a little bit delirious.
I always get a little wild, dude. ADD, that'll do it to you.
I can't judge. I work midnight to noon, and it's peak season right now, so it's 6 days a week.
Oof.
Oh man,
I feel for you, sir. That's dark.
that takes a different kind of constitution to be able to pull that off, man.
Yes, it does.
Look at most of my collection; it's nocturnal.
Snakes department.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to work and all my stuff's out. I'm like, you're good. All right,
Oh, the
cool.
boy got the googly eyes. Their pupils, as soon as the lights go off, it's so funny. They look like just like
Oh
so.
yeah. Yeah, I kept dendrophyla a long time ago, and they're different animals at night. Like it's no comparison at all.
Like even like any of the nocturnal stuff, like I feed all the geckos before the lights go out for a reason, because if I'm late one day and the lights go out and they activate, it's just they're jumping all over the place and like
last night
it's
I
a
was
whole
watching
other thing.
it was just like, here, hold this gecko.
they was just throwing Rhacodactylus at me while I'm feeding stuff, basically.
Oh my God.
Hey, so you know what? I have a bit of a maybe what might seem like a somewhat tangential question for you guys, because I love scrolling your Instagram account. Like you guys take, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just one of you, but I'm kind of lumping the two of you together. Who's responsible for the pictures? That's you, Stacy?
All
That's
Okay.
me.
Okay. So this is something I talked to a lot of close friends about this, and it's not something I necessarily talk about. It's not something I've like aired out on the show, but like, God damn it, dude, taking good pictures is not hard. People need to do it. It's so valuable.
I've got people for that before. Like I've got people that are like, "Oh, look at my lizard," and they're like in this like yellow bathroom lighting, and it's obviously and they're like, "Stop! The color temperature is all wrong. Go like near a window or something, dude, and do the same thing. It's gonna look 5,000 times better."
Yeah,
or outside if you can. It's a little too cold out for outside pictures right now, but when you can, they're like.
I have two friends that are both Euromastix breeders, and bless their souls, they take just the garbage photos. I'm like, dude, I'm going to tell you, you spend $75 fucking on a point and shoot digital camera and turn the flash on and put the lizard in a white box. Do yourself a fucking favor and quit taking, or said, oh, it's summertime. Go outside in the shade. When your animal's at its best, tap the phone so it focuses. Like, this is so not difficult at all.
That's me. If both my hands are occupied, I'm like, if I have the whole, I'll be tapping the focus button with like my nose.
Yes.
To get a spot.
Yes, dude. Yes. Like, but here's the thing. I think that people think that this is vain. I don't think this is vain at all. I think that there's great value in refining this part of your capacities as a herpetoculturist, and let me allow, this is going to get a little esoteric, but I think y'all will relate. I think you're going to get this. So I think that if you're going to take photos of your animals, knowing how to photograph them properly is going to force you to understand how they tend to respond to changes in stimuli based on, like if they're a reptile whose color and like saturation and darkness ebbs and flows with temperature, mood, and stimuli, you need to know why and how that happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to know what's going to cause your animal to either get darker, lighter, less, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Being able to take good photographs means that you're attentive to the appearance of your animal, which means that you're paying attention to external, if there's anything on the animal that isn't good, right? Like, I'm paying attention to the scalation texture. I'm paying attention to the sheen of the scales, hydration. I'm paying attention to clear eyes. I'm paying attention to what's on my animal, which means that I'm probably paying attention to what's going on in my care. Like if someone, if someone was if I was gonna do business with anybody, whether I'm buying a reptile or like trading someone a reptile, and they send me shit photos, I'm not doing it. I don't care. I don't care if it's a Fiji iguana, which I would happily go to jail to get one. But I'm just saying, like, you know, like,
like sometimes I'll risk it for the biscuit. I've bought like some geckos from crappy photos, and they've been like, "Oh, that was nice."
right,
Yeah.
right. And look, and I've definitely dealt with people who take terrible photos, and the animals are just fine. Like, this isn't across the board. I'm just saying it's like become a general rule because I think it's so important, right? And there's two more reasons. One, you can tell a lot about an animal and its caging by the way people take photos and the things they take photos of. Because if you're an attentive, observant person to your animals, you're not going to post a photo with that animal in a cage that looks like shit, that is filthy and jacked up, that doesn't have the right accoutrement and furniture and everything for that animal. You're going to make sure that it's going to help at least keep you honest enough to not photograph something that's going to make you look like a dunce, right?
I've seen people do that before. I'll be looking in the background of like Instagram photos, and I'm like,
And like,
dude, yes.
That whole thing actually helps you. It's like the sort of like,
you're like, if that's too dirty for me to take a photo of,
maybe I gotta clean this. Maybe it gets me on my
Yes.
a little bit more. But
Yes.
like,
and
don't.
I'm so sorry. I'm so passionate about this topic, and I feel like I can vent this to all of you because the three of you get it, right? Learning to take photos of your animals is a way of learning to be more transparent about not just your methods, but your sales practices, right? I can tell if someone takes a picture of a Euromastix from very specific angles. I can tell if they're fucking hiding something. And I know they're hiding the oral buildup of shit around the mouth that some Euros get. They're hiding a scar. They're hiding the actual weight of the animal based on the angle that they put it at. Did they give it a big soak beforehand? Did they clean that animal off? Is that animal likely to look more jacked up if you didn't just spruce it up right before the picture? And I know what to look for, right? Because I have to take those pictures myself, and not trying to lie to anybody. I want everybody to see everything that's perfect about my animal. So I take a picture of it in a very specific way. And you do the same thing. You take phenomenal photos of your stuff, and it shows them in such a way that is like, look at how great I care for everything I have. Because, you know,
I appreciate it because like, I don't think I'm like a photo expert or anything.
No.
The majority of those photos are just from like my iPhone. I didn't have a real camera till like 2 weeks ago when my best friend gave me their old one. So it's not even a brand new camera.
Right. And which is even better.
And the iPhone, it's what, an iPhone 6? 8. So it's not even like a newer one. It's got like those 3 cameras. It's like Pro Max. Like I'm taking like selling these pictures for like $800, you know, at a wedding.
It's an iPhone. It's not new.
Right. Which in my opinion speaks even more to that, because you're not able to like gussy up the image in any way. It's just like, it is perfect. And the last thing is, you can tell when someone, you know, because when you learn how to, and I mean, I'm sure you're in a similar position, not just with iPhone pictures, but with a photo that you take on like a fancy camera and upload into your computer. It doesn't matter what editing software you're using, whether it's on the iPhone, the software that comes stock on the damn iPhone, or whether it's Adobe Photoshop. If you don't know how to edit your photos, I know when you're bullshitting me about color, right? Because that happens all the time. It's so easy when you see someone
will change.
Yes, exactly. When you see someone and they're like, here's my blue Euromastix, and it's against a background, and there's something in the background that looks like a fucking highlighter, and it's just like, and you're like, oh, you just went in there and cranked up that saturation bar, and you didn't pay attention to the fact that it totally betrayed any sense of honesty you have in your own image. So like,
they've got like tiles on the ground and all that. It's the same floor, but it's different colors every time.
Exactly. The background and the context changes. You're like, oh, this is all horse pucky, or like.
And that's why I was really getting it. Like I was about to buy an actual camera. If I didn't get this gifted to me, I would have bought one, because iPhone has like auto white balance.
Yep.
And sometimes even that could screw you up. Like the background will be different colors and you don't even have to edit. It's just the lighting is weird that day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's annoying to me, because I see it with my eyes and I'm like, that's not correct.
Yes. It's so infuriating. And I have an art degree, so I have like been trained for more like 2 decades how to see when someone's like fucking with you with a picture. Like, I know you're a liar, dude. Stop it. And oh, it just drives me bananas, and I'm so psyched. So anyway, I just wanted to that's, people undervalue that dramatically, and like that is one of the reasons that even just your Instagram is a joy to follow, because it's excellent photos of impeccably cared for animals in great lighting, and in like, it's just keep crushing it. God damn, it's great.
It gets a little tough in the cold months, because obviously you can't bring like geckos outside and stuff for the best sunlight, but
Sure, of course. Yeah, I get it. But still, there's ways of like not, you don't have to go from like beautiful imagery to like, it looks like someone just sent you a picture from inside their, like inside their bathroom, like you were saying.
yeah, I keep calling it bathroom lighting, because it's always like yellow tinted, and the whole
so yellow.
has a filter over it.
It's like the lighting we have right now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. If someone sends me a photo like this Zoom recording looks like, I'm not gonna do the reptile with them. I'm not gonna do the trade. Oh God. Oh man.
But yeah, the best thing that, like, even if you don't like know, like, if it's your first photograph ever, just like go outside and use the natural lighting, or go by a window, or like even the UVB bulbs in the enclosures put out a nice wavelength for pictures, in my opinion. Like even the in-cage photos are nice.
So did the Arcadia.
Yeah. They do UVB, so it's
shout out to our new sponsor, Arcadia. No, just kidding.
Oh my goodness.
No, I'm just kidding. I also use Arcadia for all the Euros. I love their products. They're great. Arcadia, if you guys want to work out any sponsorship or anything, you can just text me or Roy. You can send us an email. Project
I didn't post them yet
at gmail.com.
I got some really good photos of like the Smallwoods anoles in cage with the Arcadia lights. So shout out whenever that happens. That's what lights it was.
Go Arcadia. Let's go.
Send me some jungle, please.
Oh man. All right.
Those are so nice.
Yeah, I'm getting us way off course here. Sorry, Roy. Like, let me just.
No, that's good. I thoroughly enjoyed that whole thing, and I totally get it.
It's important
to geek about the lighting and the photos too.
Yeah, I can tell.
I'm actually like, I want to get like a nicer camera. My camera's like 10 or 15 years old at this point, and I want to get like a newer one so I can up my game in that regard. But
you take great photos.
Anyway, thanks. I like to do it.
Like, there's someone that follows our Instagram that legitimately, like, who told us that they see the photos and they're like getting like over their fear of snakes, basically, because of our Instagram. Cool. And it's like not a real person at all. And they happen to follow us because I think they're like one of
my sister's friends.
Yeah.
So like, my sister will share my stuff, and I see her on occasion. She's like, they make me like think like, oh, they're pretty, and like it just gets rid of that negative association. Like she's not coming over to handle them, but it's like they're not that evil, slimy, like mongering thing that everybody depicts them to be.
Yeah, totally. So I want to backtrack to something a little bit, just because you mentioned it in passing, and I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but I'm curious if you want to tell us at all about that melanota that you mentioned as being one of your prized possessions. So it's also a melanota that is featured on that Instagram. You can see some beautiful photos of it, people, but
those are some recent photos that like I need to get some recent photos of her.
We haven't bothered her like at all, basically.
She gets fed and gets left alone. But a good friend of mine, I don't know if he wants me to publicly say his name, calls me up. Gets
swarmed by messages.
9:00 on a Thursday. It's like, hey, this is coming in a box. What do you think it's worth? And my immediate response is like, it's okay if you say this is a lowball offer, but I'm going to give you a number and you're just going to say yes or no. And like, I know it was coming in with really bad nose rub, and just other than that, it looked fine from the photos that I got. I actually found the person who had it in Malaysia that imported it. I found his Instagram and I was like, that's my snake.
Yeah.
But so for those of you that probably aren't familiar with it, it's a striped variant of a melanota. To my knowledge, it's only 2 or 3 of them that are known that I can think of. It's the only one in the United States that I know of. So normally they're vertical banding all the way down, like one scale line, versus the dendros, which have a little bit of triangle and they don't always meet at the top. But this one has just a straight racing stripe down the side that, you know, grows a little bit in width as it goes down, but came in and took frozen thawed meals right off the bat.
Oh, it's so good.
It was
when it eats,
like that's
Yes.
one of the reasons, like that, like we're 99% sure it's a melanota, because it's like a stereotype of anytime a dendro comes in, you're struggling to get it to start feeding, like almost always. Like there's very few times, and like melanota just come in so much girthier, and they just start off like anything that has like a Malaysian and Indo counterpart, like Goniosoma or one of them. The size in general is just massive difference. It's kind of funny.
I've noticed that too. Yeah, I've noticed that. Also, I can substantiate that a little bit from my own experience. Just the dendrophylla that I had were dendrophylla, and they were not easy to get going on food. They took a long time. They eventually came around, but it was forever to get them to go. But that snake is amazing. I'm so glad that it's doing well for you, because I remember when you first got it, I think you sent me a couple of pictures, and I was like, oh man, I was like so excited, but also it was like, it's one of those moments where it's like, I'm excited for you, but I'm also like, God, please don't let anything happen to that snake.
No pressure.
Like the person I go to and I bounce questions off a lot of when it comes to Boyega, his name's Chris. I'm not going to try to say his names. I'm not going to try to say his last name.
Yeah. He's in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah. But he's never even seen one in person. And he's like, he gets all the stuff coming through ham and stuff over in Germany. So he has like a lot of the stuff that we get that comes in, it filters through. So they pick out a lot of the nice stuff, and it's like, but that came here. I was so happy.
That was straight here. So
a couple people, make offers on it when they found out about it, and I
politely declined.
That snake will never leave here unless I'm getting out of the hobby.
I mean, that's like, she's like a pet too. It's not like she's it's not just like a money value thing.
The goal is to breed her and try to prove that out, if it's provable or if it's just a paradox that's like a one-off. So I think
That's
hopefully
so cool. It's so cool you're able to find the original person who found it in Malaysia too on Instagram. I had the same thing happen with I have a Phrynonax polylepis that's super weird. It's like solid red, and it's like the only one that any of us have seen that looks like that. And same thing, I found the person who originally collected it in Suriname had posted it, and I was like, that's the snake. And he and I messaged about it and everything. It's so wild. It's like the social media, it's like it makes the world a lot smaller somehow.
God damn. I'd love to be able to do that. That'd be so cool to do with a Euro, man. Have something.
Oh yeah.
Be like, I got this Euro. Do you want it? Be like, yeah, dude. Yes. Yeah, send it over. Just something weird. That'd be tight.
I mean, I found the best one I ever did was found like baby pictures of a baby Eastern blue tongue skink that I bought, which they're all in the United States. They're all captive bred, but I still think it was funny that I found its like litter photo because the dude who originally bred it posted it on Facebook, and I'm like the third or fourth owner. So it's a pretty fine. So I managed to get
really
like
cool.
all the past information on it. So
that's so cool. I love finding stuff like that.
Like a limited lineage animal, like with those guys, since very limited came through, and it's like, all right, who has these? There's like 6 people that has these. Okay, didn't come from you, didn't come from you, didn't come from you. So there's 3 people here.
Yeah.
And then just like back tracing, like detective work to figure out, hey, who bred this?
I mean, both of my Easterns have come like 3rd and 4th hand, and I've found their original breeders just because not too many people work with them. So
yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I mean, with this Phrynonax that came in, it was really funny because when it came in, it ended up I think it ended up at like underground, and then from there it was labeled as a Chironeus scurrilus, the red rusty whip snakes. And then my friend Brittany got it with the intent to send it to Ashley at Northern Lights, and when it got to Brittany was like, I don't think this is a Chironeus. I don't know what it is though.
Whoops.
And she messages me and she's like, do you know what this thing is? And I was like, whoa, that's a really weird looking Phrynonax. Like, what the heck? Where did that come from? And she's like, do you want it? I'm like, yeah.
It was like originally labeled through the import.
Well,
it just came in as Chironeus.
I'm surprised you haven't had her on yet. She's got a lot of cool stuff.
Brittany?
Yeah.
I've tried. She and I have a running joke that she's a hermit, which I am too, but she's like
a hermit.
Another level. I know we all are, but I think, but she and I are constantly joking about it, and I have to come through with like a really cool, really rare snake and send it to her first, something podcast worthy, before she'll come on the show. So it might be a while, but hopefully someday.
Let me know what you're looking for. I have a lot of friends that do imports, so I get a little bit of an inside track on things.
All right. I'll send you the list. It's a pretty short list of extremely obscure, rare South American snakes, but
I'm gonna guess there's Xenodon warneri on that list.
I think it's up there. Yeah, it's one of them. She and I are always talking about those. I really would love to have a crack at those someday, but no one's been successful yet. They're tough.
I think one of my regrets is have you seen the pictures circulating around of the Leophis typhus, the velvet swamp snakes?
Yeah.
I sold him the male that he bred. I acclimated
nice.
Sold it to him, and I'm like,
yeah, those are really cool snakes.
He got the female from one of the importers up here that I know. I'm not good friends with him, but I know him. So like I've seen him. I've gotten stuff for Zach from him and stuff like that.
Nice.
At least it bred. There's babies floating around now.
That's like the one thing like I find enjoyment out of, like, and why I kind of started where I started was like not to play the gotta catch them all sort of thing, but like I like to see the new species come in and get established to people. And like I've sold stuff at cost for what I pay for it, not even worrying about like the feeding and the like acclimating process.
Yeah.
Just so I can get somebody that I feel like will do good care, sort of like how Ashley did, but she kind of got screwed over with her Chironeus.
Yeah.
And that's like a thing. There's like so many cool things that you would like to work with, and it's like you can't, like, we have a lot of stuff. We can't have all of the stuff. So it's tough because like when something shows up, you're like, if that's never gonna come in again.
Dude. Yeah, it's definitely it does seem to be one of those things where it's so hard to focus. Not focus, that's not it. It's so hard to like say, all right, I think I'm at my limit. You get, just like we were talking about getting creative with your parents when you're a kid, trying to be like, well, you say I can't get any more bearded dragons, but if I breed them, And then you know what I mean? Then it's technically I'm not buying anymore, like you're using the fine print. The same thing kind of happens in your own mind. Like I'm not joking. I've spent this entire day looking up, excuse me, Mississippi slimy salamanders. I'm like, no, I'm gonna get like I'm gonna buy like 5 or 6 shoe boxes and then buy like 5 or 6 salamanders, just because like how cool would that be to mess with those and get a better understanding of amphibians and like blah blah blah. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about, you stupid dork? You have a desert lizard facility. Where are you gonna put them, at home? Like,
that's the tough part is like we have like a heck of a variety, but most of the stuff that I have, with the exception of like one lizard, the leaf nose, they're not in the lizard room because the lizard room ambient is too warm. So anything that can go in like that ambient I will consider it. I have a very short list of like things that I really, really want to add, but that's what's going on in there. And I know that the snake room's pretty much in the same boat, but we don't keep it as toasty.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah, no, I know. I'm always having to like, if I'm going to throw something in here, it's going to have to be, it's like the Xenogama fit just fine because they're like Euros, just want it hot as balls. But, the tortoises, all right, well, the Conyx is going to be okay because it's pretty cool ambient. And then it rises up a little ambient in the summer, but that's pretty typical. They're going to tolerate that. I don't have to put any supplemental lighting on them. So they're going to fit in just great. Oh, I got the Pilbara now. Well, it's a fucking rock monitor. It wants the same bashing.
I would really like to have those someday.
Yeah.
It's like impulse control, but it's like controlling your ambition is more.
Yeah. I really like that.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good way to say it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I definitely feel that with just what I'm working with here. A lot of it's just like space limitations and I kind of set myself up like, all right, once this space is full, that's it. Then it's like, if I want to bring something else in, I have to let something else go, and I feel like that's a good way for me to manage it, because I think that if I had an unlimited amount of space, I would just be tempted to keep it just expanding. Like I'm like a gas, I just like expand to fill the volume of the container.
Totally.
I have a pretty chill job, so like I have a decent amount of free time, but I don't have unlimited space. So that's the whole deal.
Yeah. There's I came up I went to art school, right? And I took a lot of fine art and philosophical courses around art and drawing and painting when I was in college. And there's this concept called horror vacui, which is like the fear of the void. And there's a lot of psychological explanations for this. And like here, that's why we fill space. That's why we doodle on blank pages, is because we've got like this fear of the void. We want to fill it with stuff, right? And so I'm like, oh, that's why like the myth of empty cages is a real thing, because like you know what I mean? You're like afraid of empty cages. You're like, no, I gotta fill that up, otherwise I'm gonna be tempted, like I'm gonna
yeah. I love that.
That's the one thing, like, between the two of us, is she has the one thing, and she'll figure out like how, like, where she's gonna put everything.
Yeah.
And then she just looks at me and it's like, all right, go. Like that's what happened with the Sphenomorphus. Like we were talking, got the call, like the Muller skinks. And like, hey, they're here. And I think within like 2 hours, it was like, I'm like, hey, look, where are you gonna put them? She's like, but I don't know about. I was like, that's the question. Where are you gonna put them?
Figured it out.
And I was like, all right, that's covered. We're good. Phone calls were made, and they got shipped out even before I paid them.
Nice.
This actually leads me. I hope you guys don't mind me asking this question, and please feel free to like be like, nah, we're just not really going to cover that. But I'm curious, what's it like being you're like having it so your significant other is just into the same thing as you? I mean, do you guys ever have any conflicts around like?
I wanted to ask that too. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like my fiance is amazing. She loves all the reptiles. She's fully supportive, but she is not a keeper, you know? So I'm curious about how that dynamic goes, at least for your guys' experience.
She like, you know, she definitely has a different quarantine ideals versus me. Like they're still quarantined with me. It's a little bit looser, but it's nowhere near as strict as hers. I'll give her that.
I get real paranoid.
But like
it's probably bad.
It's good and bad though to have her as, you know, being in the same hobby and everything, because it's like it's hard to turn off.
Yeah.
You know, there's times where you kind of want to turn off every once in a while. It gets a little bit hard to do that, but at the same time, it's like with me, since it's not the same. She's talking about lizards 90% of the time. I'm talking about snakes the other 90% of the time. So that time where I got to turn off, it's okay for me because she'll just come and bounce ideas off of me. It's like, hey, this project, I'm doing this, but I might need a little bit of space because I'm trying to maintain like how big my collection of Cresties is. So it's like, all right, what's your goal here? And just kind of easier to bounce off ideas and just pull back and kind of constrain yourself and control and, you know, shift your ambition. You going back to that word, like SATs. But gives you a little bit more control and maybe a better way from somebody like outside that you're asking your wife, like, hey, I'm going to breed this. It's better. Like it's easier for us to go back and forth and be like, is it worth going into this? You know, other than the fact that like we like them, does it really make sense with the plan that we're trying to enact and everything like that, versus somebody who you have, you know, they're supportive and they want to see you do whatever you want to do, like make you happy. But at the same time, it's like they're not in it and they don't really see like the little intricacies that you normally wouldn't get.
Yeah.
Like how we had to convince our parents who weren't keepers to let us have this.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's like, it's not like a constant, like, yes, we should get this, and this, and this. There's always like a discussion on it. It's not like just oh yeah, we could put that. It's always like an actual, like, can we do this like the correct way? Is it going to be good? Like, it's not just constant because people are in the same hobby. It's like, oh yeah, we can have all of the things.
Right. Well, and you know, because the other thing I was thinking about was the ways that a partner who's working on the same kind of projects that you are, if you're collaborating, then like I was wondering, you know, it's I'd imagine you get ideas, you bounce off of one another for problems that you guys might be finding in your own collections. Like even my fiance and my mom and my dad have all contributed, like, because they're not directly involved, that sometimes they're far enough removed that they give me something that's like, oh shit, I didn't even think of that, you genius, you beautiful genius, you know, and you freak out. You know, you're like, wow, you know, but then it's someone, I would imagine that would come up more, at least it might happen more often when it's the person that you're with is also very invested. Like, yeah, maybe you guys would fall into some of the same mistakes, but you probably there'd be a lot of balance in that. And, you know, helping, there's like a tug of war in some regard, not in a combative way, but just in a intellectual tug of war, you know, it's like, well, clearly this is working better. It's like, all right, fine, this is a better idea. You know, I don't know. It's just
it happens.
It definitely does happen. Like we've definitely, you know, certain things have been at odds over certain things. And like, I've jumped the gun on grabbing some things for her that like she talked about, but like we never really discussed the plan and, you know, stuff like that and gone back and forth that way. But it definitely is like, it kind of helps push you though, you know, having that person, because you're like seeing their success, you're seeing their not failures, but like their mishaps, and it's
everything.
Like, it's like an internal competition between the two of us.
Oh my gosh.
To me at least. It might be different to her. But
and it's like even like not even like partners and stuff, but even when you're talking to like other keepers, I like anyone who's been working with any species that's their thing for any significant amount of time has like all those little occasionally pearls of wisdom that you only get from working with that species or making the mistakes yourself. So if you talk to them, then like you will get that. If they share it, because some people don't always share their knowledge, but if you're in it for long enough, you'll learn all of it basically if you're intuitive with whatever species.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love it.
totally.
Yeah. I feel like that's something, that's a theme we come back to a lot in a lot of our conversations on this show, is like having some kind of responsive, intuitive relationship with your animals, you know. And the feeling that seems to be where the real meat and potatoes of why we keep in the first place seems to be. It's like, oh yeah, like I love this weird relationship I have with this crazy weird Pac-Man that lives in my fucking house. Like it's this like Pork Chop, my Egyptian, you know, like we were having a conversation before you guys hopped on Zoom, and I was talking to Roy about how, like, you know, there's a lot going on in my life, and there's a lot of pressure and a lot of change right now, just with the, you know, a lot of big stuff happening at the shop and whatever. So I'm kind of stressed. And I was talking about how, like, kind of Pork Chop is one of the lizards that's been kind of helping me keep a level head, because he's like he's like this funny, weird little dork. You know, like he's just this weird little spiny tailed dork, you know, but he's really cool, and he's so nice, and he's, you know, we have like this totally bizarre interaction that's like really difficult to quantify. It's no different than the interaction I have with my two weird house panthers and my dog, you know, like it's this very similar kind of relationship. And it's like, I can't imagine somebody else having him or having a relationship with him, because he's just such like this, you know, he's such an integral, his big red eyes, you know, he's just like, hey, you know, food or women or get out of here, you know, but he's awesome. He's like anyway, yeah.
The male Shinisaurus kind of acts like that. It's really funny because you would think they would be like a more standoffish species, but he acts like a little tiny bearded dragon sometimes. Like he'll be scratching at the front of the enclosure if he sees him with food or anything, or if we're like working in the room, he'll be like doing little dive bombs off the branch into the water, and you just hear like a plop. Like, do you got any food?
He's cannonballing for earthworms. That's awesome.
Like he actually like lets you like pet him a little bit. I don't know if he would let anyone else do that, but I could go like a little cheese and stuff. So they're really cool. I think they would be like enormously popular if they were just a little bit more easier to find.
Yeah, they're really cool.
And the water aspect, don't let it like scare you or anything. It's not like a turtle or anything where it just stinks up like the whole room if you don't do like 50 water changes a day. So they're not like that terrible.
Okay.
That's good to know.
That's barely any filtration on them.
Like they get like a little like sponge with like the pump attachment and like the little spray bar, and like it's good. You just gotta like clean the sponge, and occasionally like when they're shedding, like they'll get all the skin everywhere, and then you actually have to like siphon it out with like a hose and stuff and do like a bigger clean to get that out because the filter's not sucking that up.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
But that's like the worst thing. I've taken care of like turtles and stuff before, and they are on like next level mess. They're not.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah, that's a whole other category for sure.
And we're gonna have to have some turtle people on, because it's like the third time we've been talking shit about water turtles, you know.
Oh my god. They're super cool, but I don't want to get into turtles or tortoises right now. I do not have time for that.
No disrespect to water turtle keepers, yeah.
No, it's just like, because if you like, I worked at PetSmart, and if you work anywhere with any kind of stuff like that, you see like 5 billion red ear sliders coming through on a regular basis because they're like the easiest one to find, and you just get exasperated by it.
I think one of the other reasons why she's so paranoid about treating is she told me a story about a Russian tortoise that came in, and they were soaking it, and it literally pooped, and it just looked like spaghetti.
And no, it was just
fuck.
So like they're.
So I think she got traumatized.
It was terrible. Like it was in the container water, and it was just like.
Oh
gosh, that's awful.
Honestly, I feel a little traumatized from that story, and I wasn't even there.
So, and that's not even a water turtle. That was just a tortoise getting soaked. So.
You know, I feel like this is such a fun kind of relief for me in a way, because I feel like for a few shows I've had conversations with like real serious topics and slants, And I forget how fun it is sometimes just to talk shop and just bullshit about, how awesome these reptiles are. And like, I don't remember the last time, except for talking with Roy, I don't remember the last time I talked with other keepers about pork chop and how he's weird, and we just have this funny little relationship, and he's, and he knows different people. I don't mean to change the topic or anything, or go back to this, but this damn lizard, when my mom comes to the shop, she always walks in and goes, "Hey, buddy," and he does push-ups at her. With me, he slams the side of the pen. He's like, "Hey," he's like, he wants me to get out of here. He doesn't. It's like he's
that is absolutely valid, because another thing, again, with the shinnies being like a real little personality, is the female is a little bit more standoffish. But our friend was pet sitting the first time that the Chinese crocodile lizards gave birth. We were actually on vacation, and our friend came over and was pet sitting, and she tried to like kill him. She was so mean and so nasty to him, and I cannot figure out if it was because of the babies or if it was because he was different and she wasn't used to him. Because I went in there when we got back and I collected all the babies. I didn't get charged. I didn't get attacked. She either knew or chilled out by then. So I think she knows.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone talks about them being like maternal or anything, but like
I have I ever have you seen that video? I posted it this year. One of my female Yemenensis Euromastics laid a clutch of duds, and which is whatever, it happens, right? I have a video of her guarding her nest box, and I mean like dive bombing me from jumping off the top of it, like open mouthed, like, "Get the fuck away, like this is mine." It's actually a really cool video, because I have a few Euros that do that around when they lay their eggs. Like, actually, the female Egyptian is like that. She will kind of charge me and hiss at me when she's deposited eggs in her nest box, even when I've taken the nest box out of the enclosure. She spends like a good month or two doing it, and just like kind of grumpy about it. So it's not all of them do it, but some of them do it. That's pretty weird when you see that stuff happen. You're like, wow, you had a straight up hormone change. Like, you're a different animal.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
100.
Geckos sometimes do it. You don't expect it, but they do.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man.
This is one of my buddies.
Oh, look at
we're
this
talking
guy.
about the buddies that we have that just bring us joy. This is Towns. It's my male Texas alligator lizard, but this is actually a species. Yeah, his name is Towns. He's named after Towns Van Zandt. Great songwriter.
Yeah.
But yeah, these actually they apparently guard their nests, and I'm really curious if I manage to breed them. I kind of want to leave the eggs with the female, because they'll guard the eggs, like, from what I understand, like pretty much the duration of incubation, which is really interesting to me.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah, Gastros seem to do it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah.
Because some of the eggs I couldn't remove from the enclosure because of where she laid them, and they definitely really curled up in the cork hollow trying to get me. Like I said, they've really not really done the threat display at me too often before, but that was one of those times.
Yeah. So I just got quite recently I got a pair of Egernia hosmeri, and yeah, they're so rad. I got them from
another thing on my very short list. I got the whole one last week, and I was like, oh my goodness,
they're so rad. I kept Egernia stokesi I don't know, around like 8 or 9 years ago, something like that. And I never bred them, but I had a big group of them. I had like 6 of them for a little while, and I never bred those. But these hosmeri, I'm committed. This is a real commitment to a project, and I have never. Yeah, exact. Don't worry, I got you. Yeah, like I have never I've never bred. Well, no, that's not true. There was one type of little skink that I had that gave live birth, and I was like, whoa, just like tripped me out, just like woke up and there was 15 of them running around the enclosure. But this is the kind of be my first major foray into seeing, like, having live bearing reptiles. And I just wonder what that experience is going to be like compared to seeing a mate, digging up and collecting eggs, incubating the eggs, and then seeing the eggs hatch. I'm really excited for the change in process. So Roy, you definitely have to do that.
So rad.
Yeah, with Towns, man, you got to make sure, let Towns act, do what he has to do as a father and as a man.
Hopefully.
I'm
I'm really curious. I hope that eventually I've got the Xenosaurus numenorum too, and they're I guess it's ovoviviparous. So they have the internal eggs and give birth to live babies.
So rad.
And I haven't done anything like that either, so I'm really curious if they'll eventually do that. But they're still pretty young. They're only a couple of years old. But
you already
so
put
Towns.
back?
He's only I put him back. He's only a couple of years old, but he's a beast. He's huge. They're such cool lizards. I feel like that is a species that's just super underrated in herpetoculture too. The Texas alligator lizards. They're like, talk about something that's like having like a little monitor. I feel like they're really similar, but a little bit slower, a little bit more mellow, which is, I think, kind of nice actually. But
yeah, for sure. They're kind of like a drier Abronia.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's
actually one of. Go ahead. No, what are you gonna say?
I was gonna say it's an illegal Abronia.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Our native species get overlooked a little bit at the time.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I would think that these guys would get a little bit more interest just because they're pretty impressive. Like they get big they're the biggest of that whole family of lizards.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, they are still obscure.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it was kind of a fun, it would have been interesting to break this apart more when we spoke with Scott and Ty Iper, right? Because in Australia they can only keep their natives, right? It's like that's what you work with, right? And here it's like, actually it's kind of like reversed. It's like, well, you can mess with some natives, but not all of them. So it's like, it's okay. It's cool if you keep corn snakes, cow kings, bull snakes, hognose, depending on the state you're in. It's sort of okay, but with other stuff, it's like, no, you can't keep that. No, you can't keep that. So I feel like it kind of scares people away from some of the really rad native stuff that we've got, like the collared lizards and chuckwallas and various other badass reptiles, leopard lizards, desert iguanas, fringe-toed lizards. I mean,
I don't know if these go up into the United States, but I am a huge fan of the zebra tail.
Oh yeah, for sure.
They do.
Definitely. Yeah.
Those are awesome.
I've only ever seen them in Baja, so I wasn't sure how far up they went.
Oh yeah. They are kicking ass in America, and they're they're so cool. Such cool lizards, really.
And I've never actually caught one or put my hands on one because they're like heating up in the desert sun and they're like freaking gone.
Oh yeah, they're so fast.
They're running.
Amazing.
You ever seen that? Well, of course you have. You guys have seen Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
You remember the scene where he's asking about the T-Rex? He's like, "Oh, we clocked the T-Rex." No, not the T-Rex. When he's talking about the Velociraptors, and he's like, "How fast are they?" And he just turns to him and he goes, "Cheetah speed." Yeah, like that's what I think of when I think of the zebra tails. Is like,
they're fast. Yeah.
And it's like there's like a bunch of stray dogs in that town, and I saw one. Like I was looking out the hotel window, and I just saw this whole pack of stray dogs chasing this lizard, and that thing is just like pew.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about your annual. Is it annual or is it biannual?
It's annual.
Trip to Baja?
It's basically a tradition now, and it is in no way an actual like herp trip, but
I know.
It is predominantly diving and snorkeling and whale sharks and sea lions and that kind of thing. But there are cool lizards there.
We'll have to send Phil a video. I think I should send you it, but it's not something I'm allowed to publicly post. But there's some very cool lizards down there. We'll say that. And I think Phil will get a real nice.
We saw while we were diving off an island, like with the sea lions and everything, we saw right up on the beach, like 20 feet away from us, there's the Angel Island chuckwalla.
Ah!
And they're only there. They're on the big island, and then they're sprinkled throughout the other, like the actual like natives that live there, like move them to the different islands that are floating around out there, and they're on like some little tiny rocky outcrops that you wouldn't expect to like host anything of size. And we saw like from the boat, we saw 2 more. And they're
so
like,
cool.
they're super cool.
I will cry if you send me that video, because the angel, the San Estebans, all even the island collards. I'm blanking on the name of the collards all of a sudden, but all of those island, nobody knows. Like, so few people pay attention to these badass lizards right here. They're like, well, I gotta go to the Galapagos. No, go to San Esteban Island. See what the fuck. Those are the craziest looking lizards ever. You know,
and it's not
so
like
cool.
it's not a herp trip, and we like bugged the tour guide. We're like, please, can we see if there's any lizards?
So it's the first year we gone down. Like, I'll admit, the first time I went down, it was more just to go with her, spend some time with her.
Yeah.
Because like I'm not a high heat kind of person. It's just not.
It's warm there.
Like, I'm a shorts all year kind of person, and we go down, and there's a mural on the side of a wall, by a little park they have, and there's a mural of that. I'm like, that'd be really cool to see. Yeah. And he talked to us a little bit about it, and I think he's been going down for
years,
almost 2 decades, because he used to go down there for work with a university from California, and they go down and partner with one of the universities down there, and they would go out and do studies. But we're the second group he's taken that has got to see them.
Wow.
Oh,
it was nice.
And
That's
like,
so cool.
You could see this lizard go up under a rock, and he started doing push-ups.
Yes, dude.
It was like his perfect little rock too. Like, there was this little hollow under it, and it was like just for him or her. I don't really know which one it was. It wasn't too colorful.
It was.
He had
missed.
He scoped out the whole thing. Yeah. He scoped it. He was like, I planned for this. This was intentional. He thought through how he was going to be seen from that boulder. He's like, I'm going to look right here.
And it was so cool, like, because the rocks there, it was just basically like all like crushed granite and stuff, and it was just like a really neat look, like a nice little biome.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So rad. The coolest stuff. I
was thinking about the one podcast you said you came home with like 70 pounds of rocks in your carry-on. You can't do that here, but that would be really funny, because this is some nice sand.
Yeah, no, it's perfect, right? It would be absolutely ideal. And you're like, if I just had 100 pounds of this or 300 pounds of this, I would never need to buy sand ever again. I
was like, we could have done something, but we were already getting looks, because I had my backpack and I had both of our pairs of 3-foot free diving fins strapped to my backpack.
If I come back with free diving fins in sand, it's just like, that's not gonna work. It was already weird.
Yeah. No, I get it. That's true. That's fucking great. Well, so this conversation has been absolutely fantastic. I've really been enjoying this. We are creeping up on, we're right up at like 2 hours now, and I want to, and I know that you guys are at Eastern time, and I want to be respectful of your time, and I think my fiance is going to have food here in just a few minutes. So if it's okay, if we say we're going to bring the conversation, we're going to try to wrap it up now. We clearly have to have you guys on more than once, like, obviously, you know what I mean? Yeah. You guys are awesome. And I feel like all we did was we talked about a bunch of cool stuff, but we also did a little bit of bullshit in there, and that was probably mostly my fault. So we have way more. We're going to have to like really tease apart more of what you guys do and how you guys think about what you do. So hopefully
specific Boyga episode.
I warned Roy this was going to happen.
Yeah, I thought
he did. It's true. He did.
Yeah. So this is obviously
He's like, do you have any specific topics so it doesn't turn into a ramble fest? And I was like, we're all about the ramble fest.
that's all we want to do. Yeah. Like we are in the business of recording ramble fests and broadcasting them to other people.
But we should do some more focused episodes though with y'all. And I'd love to really talk Boiga and and just get into all the good stuff.
Me too. But with that in mind, we got the one we want to do the last one. Yeah, is that the idea?
Yeah. You want to take it?
Yeah, hell yeah, I want to take it. All right, so it's the kind of the show tradition. We're asking everybody the same question at the end of each show. Why herpetoculture? And you can take that in any way you like. Like, why do you do it? Why do we do it? Why should we do it? Why do humans do it? Anything. What comes to mind for you when someone asks you why herpetoculture?
Do you want to do it or you?
I have a small idea.
All right, well.
Like the thing with me is like if someone has like this little creature in their house, it doesn't matter if you're like us and you have like a billion, but even if you have just like one leopard gecko or one crested gecko and they're doing it like really, really good, it makes them like respect the natural world a little bit more. Like if you get like a little piece of nature in your house and then you're like, you just think about more of like the environment and that it should be protected and we shouldn't be like bulldozing the rainforest, and maybe they will go out and like, even if they don't do anything, they will tell their friends, and then slowly, because there's a lot of people out there that I've met that don't even like care about any kind of animals, and it's just because they don't have any experience with them.
Yeah.
And like I've had fish in the past, and that's basically like where I started keeping stuff. But for whatever reason, I could just like dial in the reptiles better. Like, cause you don't like, there's not like tons and tons of variables, and there's no like the huge heavy water aspect to be dealing with. But some of it still applies. Like I know you've talked about it before on the other podcast, where there's like those little details that do carry over. And I just like, there's so many different colors and they're so cool. And like I had a crested gecko on my hand the other night and I was just staring at her as she was walking across, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And that's like a species that like if they were less common, people wouldn't like.
Oh yeah.
Totally. Yeah, we've talked about that before.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's excellent. I love that answer. What about do you concur, Dan, or is there another?
Yeah, I definitely agree with her on a lot of it. It's for me, it's
like a very vague way to say it though. Like,
you know, like some people they have that ability to travel very easily. Some people don't, and like I feel like herpetoculture kind of lets you, and even fish keeping kind of relates to it. You can bring that aspect to your home, and you can have that little piece that, you know, call it selfish if you want to, like that piece that's yours, that you feel that you can relate to it in some way, or even if it's like a goal that down the line, like at some point I have to make it to Malaysia later. Whether I come back from there or not, but it's just that it kind of sets the way for like you, pushing you to go there and getting out of your comfort zone and just enjoying something that normally you wouldn't be able to enjoy.
Yeah. I like that too. Yeah.
I really like agriculture stuff and like farming aspects and stuff, but I'm allergic to like a whole bunch of mammals, so I can't do any of that. But like you can apply the same stuff. Like they have very oddly specific ways of doing stuff, and then we have the same thing here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Man, those are both great responses. I like that. We've had some real wild ones, like real wild cards to some of those questions. Like my favorite one to date so far is Philip Tremper saying it's a disease. When I asked him why herpetoculture, I was like, yeah, I feel like I have a bit of a disorder, you know.
I think a lot of us have ADD.
I think so too.
I think about this all the time. I mean, how many reptile keepers are like neurodivergent in some way? Like that's like a whole show topic.
I can't think of any that aren't.
I know.
I'm thinking right now, and I'm having like issues coming to mind. Anybody like
I'll
100% together.
I'll fully say, like, as much as like in my daily life that I have to deal with it because I'm a manager, but I don't like dealing with people most of the time.
Yeah.
Yes. Also that.
And this kind of goes against like the educational aspect that I, grew up with and everything. It keeps people away from me that don't share that. Like, it's easier for me to put people away because they're so afraid of something that they have no idea what it's about.
Yeah.
And it kind of helps me make sure I keep positive people in my life, because only those people that actually want to be there, maybe that are interested in it or something, are the only ones that really stick around to try to build a relationship, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Wow. That's cool. I've never heard that perspective either. I like that too. Damn. This is why I love this show. It's like, I love doing this because I'm telling you, every single convo, every one of them has been interesting. And I feel like I've gained a totally different perspective from every person we've spoken to, including both of you, of course. It's really yeah, except for you guys, no, just kidding. No, it's cool. It's really interesting. And I feel like even if Roy and I are the only ones ever listening, I mean, obviously we got listeners at this point, but my point is, even if for some reason someday nobody was, I'm getting out of here. You got, man, this is awesome. I'm so out of it right now. I'm really apparently back on my own.
You got to make sure you do this in person. You guys got to get out to Tinley.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We're talking about it.
We are.
Yeah.
We actually have
March.
We have a little shared note where we have ideas and prices and stuff like that. So it's definitely something we're thinking about. So
like I told Roy, I will help pay for the hotel. I will pick you up from the airport if I have to. I will help.
Too generous, man.
Yeah.
Okay, so
we want to get out there.
Like Daytona, but Tinley is also very fun. I might just be a little biased because the ocean was right there, though. So that could be.
Yeah, understand.
I think we just have to do both.
Yeah, we probably got to do both.
Daytona was. Oh, it was ridiculous. There's just lizards everywhere, both indoors and out.
Yeah,
there's sharks, which is very cool in my opinion. It scared some other people, but whatever.
Also cool. Yeah. Yeah.
And then Tinley's cool too, like the shed aquariums there, but there's not too many like herping. There's not like too many herping locations near there.
That's okay.
It's close, like it's close enough where you can drive to like Snake Road, but the times where Tinley is like not.
It's cold.
Good peak times to go.
Right, of course. Yeah, that's all right. We'll just have to balance it out with one of each, at least.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Excuse me. Well, I think then I'm gonna, as long as there's nothing. Where can people find what you guys are doing? Where can people find, and get in contact with you guys?
So if you want to get in contact with us, she runs the Instagram page that is for the business that actually gets responses from and actually posts, because I rarely post on mine. It is roots_scoots and underscore scales on Instagram, Roots, Scoots, and Scales on Facebook. You can link it that way. We said it weirdly. I'm sorry. I'm also in the same boat as you, Phil.
We both have access to the message box on that Facebook page. If you get to our like personals, obviously those are separate, but like that one is the joint effort. You'll get both of us. If it's a lizard question, I'll probably answer it.
If the grammar is horrible, I probably answered it.
Oh my goodness.
Now we know.
Awesome. Yeah. Now we're
The
all
there and there is getting mixed up.
yes, that'll happen, I guess. That's even happens to the best of us.
Well, thanks so much, y'all. I'm stoked for this conversation, and I'm stoked about the thought of getting to hang out face to face at Tinley.
Yeah, same.
I'm really I really want it to happen. I think it's possible. So
I think we can do it.
It's just getting the ducks in a row, but I think we can do it.
October's a little iffy because that's like around the months we usually vanish for like a week. So
true.
March. Hey,
March.
March is soon too. That's
coming right up. That's not far.
I'm like saving now. I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, totally.
Don't remind me. I'm terrified. All right.
All right.
Let me stop the recording here.